Good evening, everyone. I'm Ross from Coon Smith 150 Group Property Accountants, and I'm just going to go through a simple example of what we might look at doing to improve your tax situation after these new interest changes. And this is an example. It saves a little bit over $16,000, just a simple rearranging of things, and yeah, just looking at things a little bit differently. I've used commercial property for this example, but it could be very similar with new builds, and there's obviously some opportunities with either. So I'll just share my screen and we'll start off. So my example, Jack and Jill, my favorite characters at the moment, they've got a commercial property and some residential properties. So obviously with the new rules coming in, um, commercial property, debt on commercial property is deductible. Debt if we were trading properties is deductible. Debt on new builds is deductible, but we're still waiting to hear exactly what is a new build and exactly how that would work. So Jack and Jill, they've got a commercial property, 22 Bad Street. It's worth 2.4 million, and the debt on it was what it originally cost them years ago. It's only 700,000. They've also got some other residential properties. They own them all in their personal name. So straight away we're thinking, oh, can we put some more debt on the commercial property and that will be tax deductible rather than have it on the older residential property, which is obviously going to lose its interest deductions over the next 4 years and slowly get phased out starting 1st of October 21, which is not too far away. And like I said, this is done for commercial property, but new build would be very similar. So if you had new builds as well as older ones, or commercial as well as older ones, or trading as well as older residential, these sort of examples what you want to look at, and it's worth going through it. So we're going to start off with some terrible advice. It's some bad advice. So Jack and Jill keep 22 Bad Street in their personal names. They borrow an extra $1.7 million. So they had 2.4 million of commercial property, 700,000 debt. They've borrowed 1.7 million extra, so up to 100%. So yeah, they borrow it, maybe secure it over the commercial property. Well, the reason I think this is terrible advice and why it's not a good idea is the answer does depend a little bit on the exact facts, but most likely that extra 1.7 million is not deductible. It's got nothing to do with the commercial properties. It hasn't been used to buy the commercial properties. They only cost 700,000 to start with, and this extra 1.7 million has actually been used to buy the older residential properties. So just by borrowing an extra 1.7 million secured over the commercial properties, we've done absolutely nothing. We've made no more interest deductible. So just to show that, yeah, so basically that's terrible advice. It hasn't done anything. So yeah, if you do this, you borrow some more on the new builds or you borrow some more on the property trading, just a change like this is going to do absolutely nothing. It's poor advice. So what this is saying is, say you've got older properties, residential properties worth 5 million. The original loan was $2 million. It's obviously going to lose its interest deduction from the 1st of October 21 and slowly get phased out. So what we're trying to do is take away the debt, reduce it down to 300,000, and we've got a lot smaller debt that's going to be non-deductible long term. And that's in Jack and Jill's name. Then we've got Bad Street, the $2.4 million commercial property. The loan's 700,000. We lump in this extra 1.7 million loan, and now we've got new deductible 2.4, still in Jack and Jill's name. Wrong. That 1.7 million is not tax deductible. It doesn't reduce this. This is not right, and this is not right. The loan has not been used to buy a commercial property, so it's not deductible on this side. And what's really happened is we've just taken out an extra 1.7 million debt. It's got nothing to do with the commercial side. It's really on this side. We've still got $2 million, which is going to be non-deductible long term. So this is the terrible advice. What could we do better? We'll start off with, as always, is it actually a good rental? Is 22 Bad Street actually working for you? Is it helping you meet your goals? Is it doing what you want? Is it helping you meet your aims and goals long term, giving you the passive income and equity gain that you want? So look at through some of those. What's the cash flow? What's the opportunity? What's your personal circumstance? Is 22 Bad Street actually working? Then if it is, then we'd keep it as a rental and look at a restructure. And there's lots of opportunities with commercial property. I'm really focusing on the restructure in this, but this is a terrible setup. We've got a lot of property owned in personal name. Potentially, we'd be looking at asset protection. Is there better ways to own it? And you need to be very, very careful restructuring. That can have huge tax implications. For residential, it can be bright line. It could be tainted and taxable. It could be caught by other taxing provisions. Commercial is generally a lot easier because you're not caught by bright line rules. And there's also other reasons for this that I've talked about in other webinars and seminars. It's a terrible structure having the commercial and the residential together, and it really needs to look at. So if you've got a whole lot of property in your personal name, I'd have a look at this. If you've got commercial and residential in the same structure, again, you really need to relook at what that structure is and get some better advice. So for this example, if we did keep it and we're looking at restructure, maybe we could sell 22 Bad Street to a new entity such as an LTC. It's just an example. You don't have to use that. LTC buys for 2.4 million. It borrows 2.4 million. All the interest is tax deductible because it's to buy a commercial property. So what we've got is older residential 5 million. It did owe 2 million. We've got the extra 1.7 million debt that's coming across from commercial. We're down to 300,000 non-deductible debt still in Jack and Jill's name. And then we've got Bad Street being purchased in the LTC, for example, bought for 2.4, borrowings 2.4, all the new debt is 2.4 million, it's all deductible. So we've actually achieved our purpose. If you're borrowing at say 2.29%, interest 49,000 roundabout, tax saving just a little bit over 16,000 per year. That is pretty fantastic. Like with anything, we need to be very careful. What is our cost from doing this compared with the benefit? Obviously, if you're spending $100,000 to do this, to save 16,000 in tax, why on earth would you bother? But potentially this is looking really good. 16,000 is a big amount. Our cost should be a lot less than that. And also check all the other tax provisions. Is the sale of the property taxable? Were you tainted or something and made the sale taxable? Was it a trading property and you sell it and it's taxable? Think about that. Don't just sell it. Make sure you get some expert advice. This is all easy. We've said that they can just do this restructure, but you need to think about, why are you really doing this? If your sole reason to do a transaction is for tax, it's probably tax avoidance. So generally with this kind of thing, there is a lot of opportunities and there is some really good reasons why we could do this, but make sure you get some expert advice. It's not something you just want to rush in and do and sell your property to, an LTC for some reason. You need to think this through. What is your commercial reason for doing this? Is it tax avoidance? And you need to look really hard at it. So like I said, for commercial properties, often I've got some great reasons for that. And there's some other things that I'm trying to fix by doing this. So worth coming and seeing me, worth having a free chat, and then having some expert advice and getting this right. The other big thing to think about, if it was commercial, if it's a new build, not such a big deal, but you might find the commercial reason a bit harder. But watch the difference in interest rates. Residential maybe 2.9, commercial 3.5. On 1.7 million debt, that's actually 59,500 difference. Even after tax, because we're saying it'll be tax deductible, that's 39,865. That ruins your benefit of 16,000 pretty quickly because you're paying a whole lot more interest. So be very careful about interest rates. And if you're going to jump from residential to commercial, that might not be such a good thing. So often a starting point is having a bit of a chat to the bank. Is this sort of possible? How would it work? So a little bit of a summary: poor advice, keeping Jack and Jill's name. Having the commercial and residential in Jack and Jill's name has other problems as well. If you borrow in that side, it's most likely not tax deductible because it was used to buy the existing rentals. Whereas on the other side, checking, does the rental work? Does it meet your aims and goals long term? Do the numbers work? Does it make sense to do this restructure? And is there commercial reason for doing it? Why are we doing it? Does it make sense? If that all works, potentially selling to a new entity, LTC buying it for 2.4, borrowing 2.4, all the interest is deductible, saving 16,000 a year. And like I said, be very careful with those interest rates. So hopefully that's, yeah, given you a few things to think about. Like I said, it is commercial property example, but if you've got new builds, if you're trading, we're looking at things like that. Really worth having a free chat at the moment, going through your scenario. What can you do to improve the situation with these new rules coming in? How good are your rentals? Are they actually still working? So we go through the numbers a lot and look, is it still actually a good rental, or should you do something different? So like I said, really worth having a free chat with me. Yeah, there's a link down below, and yeah, also watch out for more videos. And we've got a webinar, a webinar on Wednesday night about the new changes, about the new interest deductions, about the bright line rules, and we're repeating it next week as well. So I'll put those links below as well. Thanks a lot. Bye.